Hello and welcome to the Depth Chart Podcast presented by Port Royal Plants, a Kentucky proud product that is grown, processed, and manufactured in Kentucky. Because your mind and body deserve quality products you can trust, visit portroyalplants.com to learn more and try out their products. Today's podcast is also brought to you by KLW Handmade Belts. KLW Belts are handmade here in the Bluegrass. Take advantage of free shipping on all web orders. All belts are genuine leather, no synthetics, padding, or backing, just solid leather. Give them a call at 859-509-7816 or head to klwbelts.com. Freddie, Kentucky got back to their winning ways last night. What were your initial thoughts on the game?
Wow. Whatever Brad White's salary is, Jay, they just need to start adding some numbers this morning. Dortch, starting outside linebacker, teammate of mine, does a great job on this podcast. Jay, I thought the defense for 4 quarters was tremendous. Tackled extremely well. Great plan, just didn't sit back. You know, some teams attack this Mississippi State offense by dropping 8 and just keeping everything in front of them. Brad White got after Will Rogers. Only sacked him one time, but I like the way that the rushers stayed in their lanes, didn't allow leakage. But I'm going to read you a couple numbers, Jay, and you tell me what you think about this. Kentucky held Mississippi State to 236 fewer total yards per game than they were averaging. Held them to 152 fewer passing yards that they were averaging per game and 85 fewer rush yards. So Brad White and that defense got it done. And for 4 quarters, they tackled well. I really liked how DeAndre Square kind of quarterbacked that defense. They kept everything in front of them, but they did show some blitz packages that was new. Carrington Valentine gets a sack, a corner, tackle for loss, 6 tackles, and a quarterback sack. I thought it was a complete game by that defense, Jay, and did everything right to shut down. This Mississippi State offense, blistered Texas A&M and Arkansas with over 500 yards. Average winning their last 2 games by 20 points over those 2 SEC West opponents. And then Kentucky comes in and pretty much shuts out this Mike Leach offense, hold them to 22 rush yards, averaging 107 per game. Just a complete dominant performance by that Kentucky defense, Jay.
It was amazing to watch, and what a great game plan. You know, if you look at last year's game, our linebackers lined up probably 2 yards deeper than they did this year's game, and really Brad White kind of did a controlled aggression against them.
Yeah,
our defensive line, whether it was 3 or 4. Got pressure. It's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but they closed the pocket down. The other thing they did great was they got their hands up.
Yes, they did.
So they got their hands up, and let me turn this off. Sorry about that. But they got their hands up and knocked down some balls.
Yeah.
And stayed in their lanes, kept them in the pocket. Last year Will Rogers got out for a few yards on his feet. And then I think last year they had over 100 yards or close to 100 yards rushing their running backs. But, gosh, the tackling was just textbook.
Yeah.
If we do that last week, we win last week.
Oh, yeah.
I that was one of the best game plans and executed better than I've seen it in a long, long time.
Yeah, one of my keys to the game, Jay, defensively was smart pass rush lanes. That doesn't necessarily mean get sacks. That means – for I saw Kentucky play with 1 defensive lineman with his hand in the dirt, 3, 4. Mixed it up. But stay in those lanes. That way, if you're not going to get home, and Mississippi State gets rid of the football so quickly, you're not going to get a lot of sacks against this team. But if you don't get to the quarterback, get your hands up. I thought the defensive line played their best game of the season, and just that total defense was dominant. Held Mississippi State to 27% on 3rd down, Jay. 50% on 4th down. So, I was worried about Johnson and Marks, those 2 running backs for Mississippi State. I thought makes that offense go. 95 total yards for those 2. McClain and C-Rod 275. So Dylan Johnson, Jaquavius Marks, 95 combined yards. Sorry about that. C-Rod McLean, 275. I think that was the ball game. Going to the other side offensively, 27-17 is a good win. But if you take away those penalties in the first half, I think we could easily be talking about a 47-17 win. Kentucky just was out of sync offensively in the first half. 10 penalties, pre-snap penalties, had a punt return call, touchdown call back for a penalty. The first half had to be described offensively and in special teams as sloppy, as underwhelming, and then come out in the second half and I thought played really well. I thought we saw some maturation. I thought we witnessed that offensive line come together. I owe DeAndre Buford an apology in the pregame show. I said that if Flax is out, I didn't think Kentucky could win the football game. DeAndre Buford played, and he battled early, got beat on one-on-one, but I thought he played better. But, Jay, the reason that offensive line played better, in my opinion, you saw a lot of 13 personnel. They were a lot of heavy formations, personnel groups, a lot of tight ends. Kentucky takes away that apparent weakness at tackle once you get down in the depth chart and supplants that with multiple tight ends, and that's where Kentucky was getting a lot of the run game. I thought the inside of the offensive line played well. I thought Cox played extremely well. Jagger got hurt, played well. Tayshawn Manning played much better than he did last week. So when it came to it and Kentucky's backs were against the wall, the Cats went back to old school Mark Stoops victory. We're going to control the football for nearly 40 minutes of the game. We're going to play great defense, and we're going to score touchdowns in the red zone. And that's what Kentucky did. Rushed for 239 yards. That's basically, we've seen seasons where that's the average. And now, Kentucky wasn't even averaging 100 yards a game. Come in, runs for 239. C-Rod, 197 off 31 carries. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he ran with purpose. I thought he ran angry. And this is a total different team when 24 and 7 are healthy and both are on the field. Jay, I thought it was just, they can make up for deficiencies on a developing offensive line with those two superstar players.
Yeah, and what a great game plan by Scangarello to bring in the heavy personnel. To give C-Rod, to give the offensive line a little bit of help. As you pointed out, I mean, the offensive line is a lot better with 7 and 24 in the backfield.
Yeah.
But you know what? I got to give the offensive line credit. They opened up holes. C-Rod sometimes wasn't getting hit till he got to, 2 yards, 3 yards downfield. Obviously, he's a game changer, just the way he runs the ball and how. I mean, his balance is unbelievable and his strength is unreal. But his ability to plant a foot and go north-south is also incredible. He's patient. He lets the blocks get set up. But man, give the whole offensive line and tight ends and also the wide receivers blocking downfield. I mean, everybody was just trying to get after it and doing the best they can, and they made a difference. I mean, they all came together. Obviously, Will's a great leader. C-Rod is a good, quiet leader. He's not really that rah-rah guy, but going back to the defense for a second, it's the first time I've seen Will Rogers uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And really, even when we rushed 3, which second half we started rushing 3 because we had a 10-point lead and maybe playing a little bit more conservative and we were tackling so well that we allowed him to do that. But even when we rushed 3, we made him uncomfortable and he was just inaccurate, which was not normal for him. He's usually that guy just picks you apart. But I do the penalties are just something that I can't figure out because it is just un-Stoops-like team to do that. I mean, we just don't shoot ourselves in the foot. And I mean, I think it was first quarter we had 8 penalties.
Yeah.
And it's just somehow they got to clean that up. I'm not sure what they have to do that. Maybe last week you could say that Kai is, his cadence was different than Will's, and they weren't used to it. But even then, I mean, you're playing at a high level in the best conference in the country. You got to be more disciplined than that.
Yeah, and speaking of Will Levis, I mean, to me, and Jay, you'll understand this, and the older folks will understand this. Will Levis is entering the Bill Ransdale toughness level at quarterback. I think Bill Ransdale is the toughest quarterback to ever play at Kentucky. I mean, the stories about him having stitches in his chin without numbing them, broken jaw, punctured lung, broken ribs, and the running back, Steven, the running backs had to call the cadence because he had a collapsed lung and broken ribs and a broken jaw. He stayed in the game and beat Clemson like that. So we're talking about a true Iron Man in Bill Ransdale. But Levis, he takes a shot. It worried me. I thought he'd broken his collarbone. I had a similar injury than that it kind of scared me. He comes back out and kind of laughs at it at the end of the game. Said, listen, I got the shot, and it's my non-throwing shoulder. Who cares? I mean, this kid's toughness comes out, completes 74% of his passes. Jay was perfect on third down. I mean, that's I think 17 NFL scouts were there. They're seeing a kid get knocked out of the game, come back, be perfect on third down, complete 74% of his passes, throw the pick six, which the offense took steps. The offense took strides, and I think I have to give Scangarello credit there. But that play call, Jay, 4th and 2, third screen in that series with 24 back there.
Row, right?
Yeah, third in a row with 24 back there. I'm thinking he might want that one back.
Yeah, and that DB, he's
good,
a stud, man. I think that's second pick six of the year, maybe.
Yeah, he's a first rounder.
Interception.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's legit, and he knew it. He jumped it. He saw it from the start. He watched. I can't remember if it was Magwood or who it was, but he saw him, take 2 jab steps and come back. He knew it. I mean, it was over before it started. Going back to the whole team deal. Let's be honest. The last couple of years, we've let one loss become 3. Now we did let one loss become 2.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, what if we had Will? What if we had Flax and all that last week? But we lost the game, but we didn't let one loss become 3. And in my mind, that's a step. I mean, this is a game that in previous years we would have lost. But as beat up as we were, without Jones, without Flax really for the majority of the game, with really not 100% Will Levis, a lot of guys playing hurt, which everybody is, both sides, both teams are. I get that. That was a big step for the program to actually pull that win out and do it in a fashion in which, obviously when he got that pick six, it closed the gap, but we answered immediately. We had some explosive plays on offense. We had some great plays on defense. I mean, that pick that Square had to end the game was solid. That was an uncomfortable Will Rogers, a rush getting back there. I think it might have been Trevin Wallace on the rush that kind of got in there and rushed the throw. I mean, it's huge not to let one become 3 like we have in the past.
Yeah. And Steven, I want to talk about the tale of 2 halves because it could be argued that first half defense played their guts out, right? I think the first half defined the 2022 season before the second half happened, right? Defense played lights out, playing their guts out, battling, fighting, just, playing extremely well at a high level, efficient, proficient, just fundamental football. Offense, 7 penalties in 3 possessions, 3 or 4 possessions and across the 50-yard line and with 3 points for the game. And then special teams era. I thought, Steven, the first half kind of summed up the season for Kentucky in a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the whole first half, was, again, the same offensive struggles. The all the penalties, same stuff that we've been seeing. But to hold Mississippi State to 3 points,
it's great.
I mean, the defense, you can't say enough good things about them, really.
Right, exactly. And then the second half occurred, and I think this is where, Jay spoke about the team grew on Saturday and the team improved on Saturday. I think we're looking at the second half, and we're looking at the offense. And was the special teams. Matt Ruffalo misses his first field goal, hits the next two. You got to give that young man credit. Colin Goodfellow bounced back from a 35-yard average last week, averaged 42 yards per punt. So the third phase started kicking in there, and then the offense started helping. So the defense was its normal dominant self in the second half, but finally got help from that offense, finally got help from that special team. So, and that had to add to the juice, the motivation from that defense. And they gave up one long scoring drive. Outside that, it was shut down. I mean, holding Mississippi State to 22 yards rushing, 2.2 yards per carry. They were averaging over 107 yards, Jay. And those two running backs, I went back to that, 275 total yards with Rodriguez McClain compared to 95 with Johnson and Marks. That's significant. To me, that's the ball game, right?
Yeah.
And Juton McClain's not going to get a lot of talk this week. It's a bye week and basketball started and things, we're going to get away from football a little bit. But Juton McClain with 78 total yards quietly, in my opinion, was a big factor in that game. And to have him established as at number two, Cavassier Smoke came in and had some nice carries. So it's amazing how much better these running backs are, Jay, when that offensive line finds some continuity, communication, and rhythm, which they did in the second half. And how did they do that? It was an adjustment by the offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello. Okay, we can't just line up in base and block these guys. Let's bring in Josh Caddis. Let's bring in Keaton Upshaw. Let's bring in Jordan Dingle. Let's bring in Brendan Bates, all the tight ends. Let's go 14 personnel, whatever. But that worked, and that helped. And Mississippi State was averaging over 32 minutes of possession time, only had the football for 20 minutes because of that complementary offense. That offense in the second half kept the football for a long time, 39 minutes for the game. So I always thought going into Saturday that this game was going to be about possessions. The first half, I thought Kentucky wasted possessions due to the penalties, but the second half took advantage of it. 3 red zone touchdowns. And the one stat that we have to talk about, Kentucky was 129th in the country, giving up 25 sacks going into Saturday. Mississippi State had 14 sacks going into the game. Kentucky allowed 1 quarterback sack on the night, Jay. 1 quarterback sack. That is a vast improvement against an attacking 3-3-5 stack defense that lives for quarterback sacks and tackles for loss.
Yeah, that defensive coordinator, he's known
good.
for being – he is good.
Yeah.
He calls a great game. He's aggressive.
Yeah.
And, I just hats off again to Scangarello for going heavy personnel and putting his offensive line in a position to have success based on the formations. But, hey, can we talk for a second, Freddie? I'd love to hear your opinion on the 2 throws that I think are just pro throws that Will had. One was that touchdown to Rashad Lewis, and then also to ice it with McClain. I mean, how big time was that? He changed
big
level
time
on the McClain throw. I mean, both of them. Wow.
Yeah, Jay, you just described the difference between a passer and a thrower. I was a thrower. I mean, I could throw it. I could bend your face mask. I could throw it so hard, right? But I wasn't a passer. I couldn't drop down the angle. I could because of baseball, but not with the rush in my face. And those 2 throws there, you can add a 0 to Will Levis' signing bonus with those 2 throws. And plus coming back after being injured, plus completing 74%, plus perfect on 3rd down. Kentucky flipped the script on Mississippi State, Steven. Mississippi State had gone for it on 4th down 13 times coming into Saturday. That's second most in the SEC. Kentucky goes 4 for 5 on 4th down. And the only non-conversion was the pick six that we talked about, right? So fourth down was big for Kentucky. And again, we talked about it all week on all my podcasts, all my writings, all that. Possessions. 4 fourth down conversions I thought was critical. Kentucky was also 40% on third down, 6 out of 15. 15 means there's a lot of third downs. So that means there's a lot of possession time. Keep that Mississippi State offense off the field. Mm-hmm. And Kentucky's offense actually helped the defense, really, for the first time this season, Jay, in my opinion. And, it wasn't perfect. Listen, it was far from perfect. I mean, there's still flaws in this team. There's flaws in every team. But to gut out a 27-17 win like Kentucky did, I thought was impressive, because this season could have gone two ways on Saturday, right? You lose this game, it could have been we're just hoping for bowl eligibility here, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it could have turned into a 7-5, 6-6 year easily.
Yeah. I was saying going in that
so
you lose this game.
I go back to this team.
Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead.
I was saying
I go back. Go ahead.
I was saying that if looking at going into that game last night, I was thinking if you lose that game, you are staring 6-6 in the face. It kind of comes down to that Missouri game, but football really is that the only true game of inches, because there's so few games that you play. I mean, you're talking about a half second against Ole Miss, and maybe turf toe keeping you from. We're talking about a 7-0 Kentucky team. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to go back to, Freddie, was how good Will Levis is at the quarterback sneak. I mean, has there been anybody? Is there any other play that you go to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1?
No. But with 24 back there, you got another option. Right now, game 7. Levis has gotten hit a lot. So as many times you can take hits away from him, I would do that. But he's pretty much money on the quarterback sneak. And then we saw last night that Chris Rodriguez had an explosive on one of those plays. He rolled for 47 yards. That's the longest rush play of the year. And then with Levis, I mean, he is so good. And I don't think we take him for granted, but I don't think we surely as a whole, I don't know if we understand just how good he is. He uses so many different receivers. Dikale Crowdus with arguably the most important catch of the game, the 50-yarder there. That was critical, right? I mean, and then Dane Key, you just throw it at him, he's going to catch it, or there's going to be a flag, because they understand how dangerous he is. Barryon Brown led the team with 7 receptions. A lot of those were screens, but he can mix it up. But when Kentucky got a lead, we got to see how Kentucky can salt away a game, right? 24 back there. Let's do it. If we need to throw the football, we can do that with play action pass. But I think the stories of the game to me were Will Levis is that guy, right? Chris Rodriguez is that guy. The offensive line took a step in a positive direction, and I'm very proud of them, because they've been beaten up for 7 weeks. I'm happy for them. The major story of the game, and I still can't get over how dominant that Kentucky defense was. I mean, that's one of the best defensive performances that I've seen in a long time, Jay. Because that Mississippi State offense was near the top in the country in a lot of categories. That was the hot team coming into this game. That was the team that nobody wanted to play, because how they beat up on A&M and Arkansas in back-to-back weeks. And Kentucky pretty much shuts them down, Jay. And again, whatever Brad White makes, let's put some digits on it this morning, because – I mean, I hope people understand and can appreciate how good Brad White is.
Yeah, I think you're gonna, at the end of the season, you're gonna look back at this game and you'll see that this was probably the lowest output this Mississippi State offense is gonna have all year long. I think about against every other team, they're gonna have more success than they did against us. And I, the growth of this defensive line, I'm starting to see that explosion from Rodgers that we knew we were going to see that he's got, and I mean, on that goal line, I mean, he swam that center and just hit the guy in the backfield. I mean, but you're starting to see that explosion. And Deion Walker,
man.
I mean, man, that guy, to play the amount of snaps that he plays too, as big as he is as a true freshman, is unbelievable. I mean, he is in great shape. They're rotating guys in. Ribka, I mean, this defensive line is starting to develop into what we thought they could be. It's taken a little time. And with that defensive line, you let our linebackers run free. And don't forget, I mean, I like De'Eric, but, I'm looking forward to getting Jones back, especially from a pass coverage perspective. De'Eric Jackson's a little bit he's not quite as fast and as good a coverage backer as Jones is. And so I'm excited about that. But then also, I mean, for DeKel Crowdis and Lewis and Magwood, those guys are stepping up. And you just think about that receiver room for the next few years. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just imagine last year if Wandale was out, what that would have done to that Kentucky offense. And now this year, Tavion Robinson's out, and Magwood played really good. Lewis played good. DeKel Crowdis could have had the catch of the game, or maybe arguably the play of the game.
And so what about that throw on that pass?
Yeah,
that play.
That was just a flick of the wrist. A gentle flick of the wrist for 50 yards. The dude's got a cannon, and he's got turf toe, and he's got a shoulder out of place.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a stud, man. He's just a stud, and I love watching him play the game of football.
Watching it on TV, just they had a lot of close up of his face. His eyes are just. I mean, I can see why these guys respond to him so much, and it's funny. You talked about Dollar Bill Ransdale. I was thinking the same thing last night, just because, I mean, the way Will Levis steps into a huddle and the way his teammates respond to him just reminds me so much of Bill. But I think, there's some intangibles that Will has that Bill didn't have. But it does remind me a lot of that. I mean, he's a great leader. He's got incredible command in the huddle and of the team. And, when you listen to his post-game interview with Kublik, you can just see why the guys love to play for him.
Yeah.
I mean, and with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he reminded me a lot of Ransdale last night. There was a lot of the similar qualities, intangible qualities between the two. And if you don't know who Bill Ransdale is, look him up. Just a fan. He was Tim Couch before Tim Couch, but there's been a lot of tough guys play at Kentucky, but there's been none tougher than Bill Ransdale. Bye week. This bye week comes at a great time because Kentucky's beat up. Got a lot of injuries. Got a lot of injuries that we don't know of. I mean, players with situations going on that just need treatment, Steven. And I think this is a perfect bye week. You play 7 in a row. Finally you get some time off to heal up, rest up. But the most important part of bye week, in my opinion, Steven, is self-scouting. And that's when you get an internal look at what your tendencies are and how you're calling plays. And, are you showing tendencies in formations? Are you down and distance heavy on a certain call? Are you personnel group heavy when you're on a hash or inside the 20? I mean, there's a lot of self-scouting that's going to go on. And I think teams can make a big jump between bye weeks. One, you get healed up. Two, you get to develop a lot of the players that aren't on the field. Keontae Goodwin, for example, will get a lot of work this week. Players like that haven't played a lot, they'll get heavy workload while you're resting and you're rehabbing, a lot of your starters. But Jay, self-scouting is huge, man. I mean, and get a look and see what you do well, see what you don't do well, and put all that together and get ready for the final run of the season.
Yeah, I think this is when you'll see a big growth in Scangarello, because he's going to look back and let's be honest, we have had a lot of multiple screen series, or basically calling the same play a few times in the same series, and I think that's going to get better, and I think I'm hopeful that you're also going to see some growth and some tight end play from a standpoint of actually receiving the ball. That Caddis kid, it's going to be interesting to watch him develop. He's got a nasty streak in him. I mean, he blocks extremely well, but my understanding is he's a great receiver also, and in combination him and Dingle and the rest of the crew, I think we're going to see more out of that position grouping. And defensively, man, they're just going to continue to get better. They're going to heal up. And and Brad, we trust. I mean,
yeah,
that guy is just an incredible defensive coordinator. His mind is incredible.
Yeah.
Giving Brad White now a couple weeks to prepare for Tennessee, do you think he can put together a plan that could slow down Hendon Hooker and the Volunteers?
I do. I have full faith that he can slow him down. Go ahead, Jay.
I said you're not going to stop Hendon Hooker in that offense. But before last night, I would say that I was not real confident going into that game, going to the Tennessee game. But after last night, I tell you, my confidence level is a lot higher. And just the way he called the game, last year again, we rushed 3, dropped 8, and they just picked us apart. They handed the ball off when we were rushed upfield and just got crucial yards with their legs. I just think there was a complete mind shift yesterday in Brad White and how he was going to call that game. He was going to trust his defensive line and their ability to get some pressure on him. So he couldn't just sit back there and pick us apart. And going into Tennessee, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to duplicate the effort they had tonight. They're going to have to tackle well in space, which they did last night, and they're going to have to get pressure on Hooker and keep him in the pocket. Our rush lanes have got to be really, really solid and not get out, because the way he steps up and the way he moves, he's a smart player. He's super accurate. We're going to have to duplicate last night's effort and even then some. But we had some great off-ball pressures too, right? Some blitzes. That was, just very timely. And rushing 4 sometimes instead of just having 3, it's a game changer.
I thought Kentucky was going to find their identity against South Carolina. That was before Will Levis got hurt. I thought the offense, Scangarello, with his full complement of Rodriguez and Levis and Flax, I was expecting this last week, so it's a week late. But I think Kentucky has finally found an identity for this team and a winning formula for this team. And that it goes as following. Average 5 yards per carry, 239 rush yards. Kentucky's got to be in the 200 mark, I think, to have balance. Time of possession, 39-22 for Kentucky compared to 20-something for Mississippi State. So I think this offense is a ball control offense because of the pace of play. And with 24 back there and Levis being so good in play action. And I think as long as you don't turn the football over, you had one yesterday, last night. But this is a ball control, run the clock, long drives, sustained drives. This is Kentucky. I think the style of Kentucky is that of an NFL team. You're not gonna see 60-something points like you do with the air raid up tempo teams. You're gonna see a ball control team with limited possessions because you want to possess the football, be efficient on third down, 40 to 50% on third down. Go for it on fourth if you can, and convert those to keep the football. I think that was a key last night, was third and fourth down. Kentucky was 50% on third and fourth down combines, and I think that was a winning formula for this team. And play better special teams and have that defense that plays lights out. So Kentucky, the winning style, the winning formula for this team is that of an NFL team, right? I mean, control the ball. You got a quarterback that can get it downfield, fit it in the tight windows, and a running back's going to get you those yards. Keep the football, keep the other offense off the field. That will be the formula against Tennessee, because you're not gonna stop Hendon Hooker. You're not going to stop that offense. You could slow it down some, but you're not going to stop them. They're too good for that.
They are, and I think Josh Heupel might be the best play caller in college football. He's incredible at creating mismatches.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the game yesterday. He put that Ricky Hyde in a stack wide receiver position and forced the safety to take him time and time again. That safety just can't cover him. So, we're not going to stop him. But if we can play similarly to what we did this past weekend, because I think that's going to be the key. Get a little pressure on him, keep him in the pocket, tackle in space extremely well, cover on the back end. And I think we can slow them down, and I think we can have success on them, both running the ball, but also throwing the ball. I think our receivers, they're susceptible, obviously, to their secondary. Their back end's not great, and if we can get some big plays, but also, like you said, control the ball on offense, run the ball, take time off the clock, limit their possessions. I think their average scoring drive yesterday was less than 2 minutes. So they're a quick hitter, right? If we can limit that, if we can take 1 or 2 or 3 possessions away from them by just running the clock and getting long drives, we're going to have some success.
College football, Steven, is different in 2022 than it ever has been before, for this one reason: the transfer portal. And to be more specific, the transfer portal at the quarterback position. Quality of backup quarterbacks has gone down due to the fact that quality backups are leaving and to be starters. Bo Allen, classic example, lighting it up at Tarleton State. How different would last Saturday have been with Bo Allen there, right?
Oh man!
And I 100% support. I love Bo Allen. I've known Bo Allen since he's a baby. Bill, just great friends. But backups move on. Tennessee is one hit away from Hendon Hooker not being there, and who they going to throw out there, So seasons can change so quickly in this era because the quality of backup quarterback play has dropped significantly due to the transfer portal. So I'm not wishing injury on anybody. I love Hendon Hooker. I love watching him play the game of football. But just like Kentucky was with Levis, that's a different football team if Hendon Hooker, jams a finger or something like Levis did, turf toe. So things can change drastically within 2 weeks. Things can change drastically. We saw Saturday night in a half, right? This second half Kentucky team was nothing like that first half Kentucky team, especially on the offense and special teams. The defense stayed lights out, but it changes from half to half. So this is a new era, and it makes it hard to predict these games, but it also makes it a lot of fun.
He reminds me, Hooker does, so much of Josh Dobbs. They got, they're both cerebral players, great with their feet, very accurate. It's just really, really good. And I think, you've talked about this in the past, but our coaching staff doesn't get enough credit for the adjustments they make at halftime.
Yes.
If you look statistically, especially the last 3 to 4 years, what we've been in the first half versus the second half, it's a totally different team.
Yeah.
And they have done an incredible job of making adjustments, minor tweaks, what have you, to really take advantage of their personnel and scheme, against whatever they're facing.
Yeah, and in the back half of the schedule too. I mean, Kentucky always does well after they self-scout, and and a bye week and get that done. All right, let's get some grades out as we get out of here. Steven, give me your grades for 7 games through the season for offense, defense, and special teams.
Ooh. I guess I go with the offense. They made plays when they needed to make plays. I'd say like a B- for the offense. Special teams, how many times? I think they missed a field goal in every SEC game so far this year. So, I mean, I think there you got to – I mean, it's kind of hard to give anything higher than a C there. There have been some explosive plays. You did have a kick return this year for the first time in the Mark Stoops era. And the defense, aside from South Carolina, has been excellent. Pitched their first shutout earlier this season. I know that was against Youngstown State, but still they played several of those teams in the past and didn't blank them.
Yeah.
So I think the defense, Brad White's defense, deserves an A. I mean, they were the sole reason they won that Florida game. I mean, not the sole reason, but they were. I mean, there was basically 2 touchdowns that the defense contributed.
Yeah, Jay.
So I'll start with special teams, but I gotta.
Oh, I think Jay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I said I'm gonna start with special teams, and with Barry on and his return game, that brings him up to a D+, C- for me. I just feel like everything but our return game has just not been consistent. And, Coach Claiborne always preached win the third phase and you're probably going to win more games than you would have if you didn't. And we just hadn't won the third phase really the whole season. With defense, I'm going A. They threw in a clunker last week. That's going to happen. I think they were pretty banged up. I think they were tired. It's been a long stretch, so I'll give them a little bit of a pass. So I'm going to say an A. And then offensively, I'm going B+. I just think there's a lot more there. I'm excited to see how they're going to finish the season. I think their their offensive line is now, they're no longer don't have experience. I think they're closing in on a good combination. 24's back, 7's back. And so I'm giving them a B+ offensively.
Defense for me, I'm gonna go A. I think the defense has carried this team. The defense has won 5 games for this team. You had a bad quarter, bad half, that happens, but a defense solid A. I'm talking like a 98.7% A, right? You got to flunk the final to get a B kind of A. Offense, I'm going to give a C, C-. And I know that's a tough grade because you didn't have 24. You got 24, didn't have 7. But the pre-snap penalties, lack of efficiency in the red zone, things of that nature, I think it's a C-. But you just got a 90 on your last test, and that thing could go up to a B pretty fast if they continue to grow. Special teams, I'm going to go C- as well because it's just been error after error. I mean, last night, my goal for the game was no catastrophic errors, but 2 penalties on a punt return for a touchdown, that could be considered a catastrophic error, right? Another missed field goal. And even the field goals and the PATs that were made, Chance Poor's having to dig the football out of the turf.
Low snap. Yeah, I know. Low snap. I don't get it.
It's just mistake after mistake after mistake. So with the offense, all the penalties, pre-snap penalties, just didn't really, just underwhelmed for a while. I think last night really got them a good grade, but I'm gonna go C- there and C- with the special teams. But I'm a tough grader. I mean, I am. I just
You are.
It's just the way it is, Jay. I'm one of those teachers that you don't want to have. But again, I go back to this defense. What would the record be if it wasn't for this defense? I mean, it saved the season, and God bless them. I mean, how many pros are on the defense? I mean, it's not like, this is not like you've got 8, 9 pros on this defense right now for the draft, right? And
Right.
Kentucky's right now number 2 in scoring defense in the SEC, number 2 in total defense in the SEC, top 5 in rushing and passing defense. And this is a norm. Brad White has produced, every year he's been the coordinator, he has produced top 5 SEC defenses with not a high number of draft picks. And I know every week people get tired of hearing me say all these things about Brad White, but I just want folks to understand how much, how good the Kentucky how good that Kentucky defensive coaching staff is, and Brad White is quite the coordinator, and I hope Kentucky can keep him, because after this year, Jay, I mean, you know what it's going to be like. I mean, LSU came after him. He's going to be highly sought after. I think he's a future head coach.
There's no doubt. And to your point on how many pros are on that defense, it's there's a lot of really, really good players, but they're just playing good, solid team defense.
Team defense.
They're carrying out their assignments and trusting their teammates, and none of them are trying to make the crazy, incredible play and taking a chance. They're just trusting each other that they're going to carry out each other's assignment, and stepping into their own assignment and taking care of what they've got in front of them. And that's it. And what happens is you're seeing the result of that. They're solid across every position.
Yeah, and Steven, you're way too young to understand this. The Kentucky defense this year reminds me of those, not schematically, not stylistically, but reminds me of those Terry Strzok wide tackle 6 defenses that Jay played on. Not a lot of pros on the field, but everybody was at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right intention. And there's something that can be said about team defense. Talent will get you so far, but understanding the community, and I think the communication on this defense is tremendous. Whether it be in the backside of the back end with Ty Asian, Jordan Lovett, then you got DeAndre Square directing traffic up there, Carrington Valentine's a veteran, those 2 outside linebackers, Wright and Weaver. And then the true freshman, Deion Walker. Enjoy him for the next 2 years. That's all I got to say, because he's gone after 2 years. He's out of here. So, but Jay, it reminds me a lot of those wide tackle 6 defenses that were very, very good back when you played. I mean, just not fun to play against.
Yeah. I always enjoyed listening to the offensive guys, the team we played against. They hated playing against us.
Yeah.
And it was that bend, but don't break. Tighten down when they get to the red zone or close to it, and it was assignment football. Everybody was solid across. And I think people don't talk enough about this secondary. Everybody was talking about how bad we're going to be, and we got guys coming in from the transfer portal, and to kind of give Brad White a little more credit, but also the DB coach, to get them to gel as fast as they did and pull together as a unit, with transfer guys coming in, it's impressive.
Yeah,
this secondary has really stepped up. They've really stepped up.
Yeah, and KLW Belts, Ryan Lemon got his Saturday. Remember to call and say depth chart and tell them we sent you, and it's free shipping. And also the Country Music Hall of Fame induction is coming up. The Kentucky Music Hall of Fame induction's coming up on Friday, October the 26th at Renfro Valley. For tickets, go to renfrovalley.com or call. I can't read. I don't have my glasses on. Go to renfrovalley.com. Final thoughts, gentlemen. Final thoughts. Give me your final thoughts, Steven, on the 27-17 win, Kentucky over Mississippi State.
huge bounce back win. It sets the stage for one of the biggest games in the Kentucky-Tennessee rivalry, at least in my lifetime. And getting that week off, I think it's huge too to win that game going into the bye week. I really feel like had they lost last night and having a bye week, you would see people start to lose interest a little bit and start to turn over to basketball season. So that was a huge win, keep the interest up in the fan base, and going into that Tennessee game and going into this last half of the schedule, the last part of the schedule where you've got several marquee games. I mean, Kentucky's playing meaningful football games going into the Tennessee game and then into November. So there's a big win.
Jay.
Yeah, I think it's just a big step in the program. We haven't had this bounce back win the last several seasons. We've started well, but it just seemed like, we got hurt. We hung our heads a little bit, didn't come back, and we usually lose 3 in a row. And that was a huge bounce back win. It was a great team win. I was glad to see the offense step up. You talked about early in the season that we knew there was going to be games where the offense is going to have to step up and take care of business for the defense. And, but they both, when it mattered, second half and obviously first half as well for the defense, they stepped up and took care of business and got a great bounce back win. It set the rest of the season up, for a lot of excitement. Going into a bye week, it always sucked not winning going into a bye week. That was a long 2 weeks. It changes the perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, we lost Jay there. For me,
the mindset of the play.
Yeah, for me, Jay and Steven, I think the second half of the Mississippi State game, that win, that was Mark Stoops. That defines Mark Stoops and his stay in Kentucky. Play bad, put your head down, make some adjustments, go back to work, physically beat up your opponent on both sides of the football, win both sides of the line of scrimmage, run the football down the opponent's throat, and win a game. The second half defines Mark Stoops' tenure at Kentucky. And one more thing about Will Levis before I get out of here. He has been hit a lot. That offensive line has made some strides and played its best game of the year. But as a quarterback that gets hit a lot, there's 2 ways to look at it, 2 ways to react. And you can pretty much see that in the huddle and, like Jay mentioned, the facial expressions of the quarterback. The first reaction is to blame and complain, right? Blame the offensive line, complain, and have the whole mad face, hands up, in the huddle to the sideline. Will Levis doesn't do that. The second way a quarterback can answer to getting hit in the pocket is to have that FU defense bring it on. And that's what Will Levis has. That's the attitude that he has. I mean, getting hit in the pocket, you'll never see him complain and throw the blame game around there. He's like, F you, bring it on. Let's see what you got, because I'm going to make you pay for that, right? So he is special in many ways. Great win for the Cats. I mean, really saved the season in a lot of ways. The second half was Mark Stoops football in a nutshell. That's why he's the all-time winningest coach at Kentucky. That's why he's so revered, is because the Kentucky went back to the old Kentucky. Let's get in the phone booth. Let's fist fight, and we're going to beat you up. And that's what Kentucky did against a very good football team in Mississippi State, a top 15 team, if I'm not mistaken, and physically just kicked their tails on both sides of the football. Thank you all very much for listening to the Depth Chart Podcast. We hope you like, subscribe, and do everything else on the YouTube thing that you're supposed to. Jay, travel safely to Nashville. I don't like that city, but apparently your daughter does, and she's moving there. Steven, thank you for taking time on Sunday. I know you're a busy man, and you and I have done a lot of work this weekend. We still got some work to do. So thanks for everything you do, Steven.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been
All
fun.
right, see y'all next week, and I can finally watch football.
Thanks,
Man, I
guys.
can
Have a
watch
good one.
football. And I couldn't. I watched one play of the Steelers game after Kentucky lost last week, and I didn't watch another snap until the UK game. So I can finally watch it. I'm in a good mood this week. Go Cats, go Kroger, and get you a KLW belt. Thank you, Port Royal.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.